What's up guys, F4H Rosso here, back once again with some GT Sport content. What else? Today we're going to be jumping straight back in on the FIA grind with some Manufacturers Cup action from the Tokyo East Outer Loop circuit. And we've selected our manufacturer. We've gone for Alfa Romeo, which spells trouble on this circuit, and you will see why. Good quali for us. We managed to get 4th on the grid. But as you'll see, heading up this straight for the first time, that is not going to last long. Again, we found ourselves in split 1. Some incredibly good drivers in this split. Surrounded by them at the moment, actually. As M. Thomas comes up my inside and Kalster goes down my outside. I'm getting absolutely swamped on this first straight. Popunku on the right-hand side there, looking down the inside too. But we've managed to fend him off. But we're going to come out of the first corner in 8th. So 4th position on the grid and 8th exit in the first sector. It gives you a really good idea of just how poor the Alfa is in a straight line. Most cars quite easily hitting anywhere between 165 and 170 miles an hour, some cars faster even. The Alfa, a top speed of 159 down the straight, so this race is definitely going to be a war of attrition for us. We're fast through this middle sector, extremely fast in fact. That's where we make all of our time. The drawback to that in race trim is the fact that there is nowhere to pass here. It's a very much single file, one line kind of circuit, Tokyo, in the middle sector. Your main passing opportunities are down into turn 1 or on the draft down at the straight. So we've got to be very clever about how we approach this race. So it started quite badly for us from 4th to 8th. But it could have been worse. It could have been worse. There were some very, very fast cars and very fast people behind us as we look down the inside of Matt into the final corner. He's broken quite late himself though, up the inside of Kalster, so we're going to get in on that action and mug the GT86 on the apex as well. Surrounded by F4H teammates in this race as Kalster slips into our slipstream. And as I say, the Alfa really struggles. It really does. You have to be right behind someone coming out of that final corner. You can see Matt's even dropping me at this point. I'm really struggling to even remain in his slipstream, never mind actually gain any time. I think I'm about probably 3 miles an hour faster than if I'd have just gone down the straight on my own, so barely keeping up. And it's the same old story down into turn 1 for the second time, having to look in the mirrors, use them diligently as the GTR flies down our inside and the Citroen flies down our outside. So we've got to make it count in this first sector. We can't afford to keep losing these positions. So deep on the brakes down into turn 1, and we're going to go around the outside of 2 cars down into that first corner. The GTR still on our outside. We've got to be brave here, hang it around the outside, use the Alfa's superior grip, and we've somehow managed to hold on to our 8th position. So working extremely hard so far just to hold on to this 8th place. I don't think I've ever worked so hard for an 8th position. And as you can see, this is where our car shines. This is where we're strong, but we've got nowhere to go. We've got Kalster in front of us. There's no point attempting anything silly through any of here. It's just going to cause an accident. We're just going to end up taking one another out. I'll end up taking him out. He'll end up taking me out. There's nowhere through on this corner. You can get close through the left-hand sweeper to potentially try and move up the inside up here, but the Group 4 cars stop so quickly that the stopping distance really, you're not braking too much into that corner anyway. It's quite fast. Your apex in there at over 100 miles an hour, so there's not really a move on. Just got to kind of stick close through that sector and try and maybe make a move work into the final corner. But then again, we're going to be struggling in the slipstream after that point. Anyway, we're hard on the brakes. Down into the final corner. Kalster very deep, so we're going to take again advantage of that as Matt hits the bollard there, tries to put me off a little bit. Straight into Kal's slipstream. And just utilise that slipstream to try and defend from this GTR behind me, but we're not even a quarter of the way down the straight and already he's drawing level, so we've really got to let this slipstream kind of play into our hands. We were losing a lot of time at the start of the straight, but because we've had the slipstream off Kalster and the Polishman puzzle hasn't, we've kind of been able to hold him at bay a little bit, where our car is going to be a little bit better on the brakes down at the end of the straight, maybe maybe we can defend this position. So we've lost that toe from in front, hence the reason why the GTR has streaked off ahead. So we're gonna have trouble making up a position. Ricard in the Citroen made a mistake, and the GTR has hit him quite hard. I'm pretty certain that got the GTR a penalty. Again, apologies for replay cameras in this one. Unfortunately, the same issue happened, which happened with the Nations Cup replay the other day, where I recorded the race, everything hunky-dory. I've got the actual raw recording of the race, but it recorded with no sound, which is massively helpful when you're trying to do a video that's going to be a decent experience to watch. No one wants to watch a GT Sport video and imagine the car noises. But yeah, a bit about the FIA season so far. So like I said, we chose Alfa Romeo as we get close to this GTR. And I think better of a move up into that sweeper. As I say, very difficult place to pass. Calster and M. Thomas fighting just ahead. So if we can use this GTR slipstream, maybe we can get amongst that ourselves. But yeah, we've chosen Alfa Romeo. I was kind of banking on the fact that Alfa will be stronger at the last two tracks of the manufacturers series as we go down the outside of the GTR into the final corner. I think we're going to be able to make that one stick too. We have superior acceleration of the Alfa, meaning that we got around the outside quite nicely there, and Puzzle got mugged by the Citroen of Ricard as well. We're actually gaining time here on the straight somehow. Slip back into that slipstream any second when we're clear. But yeah, was kind of banking on the Alfa being stronger in the second half of the season, so just trying basically to get some decent points on the board here, not expecting too much. I knew the Alfa would be fast in qualifying, but it's an altogether very different experience in the race, as you can see so far. I'm going to do a video about the FIA season because I've had a lot of people ask what it's about, how to get involved, what's on the line, what's at stake. But yeah, look out for that one in the next couple of days. It's not too late to get involved. The beauty of the FIA season is that whilst there's 4 races in each category in this first season, 2 of those races are dropped round, so you lose basically your 2 worst scores. So it's not too late to get involved. There are 2 races left. It will mean that both of the races you participate in will count, but it's better than not getting involved at all. Obviously, with FIA races, the higher your driver rating is, the more chance you've got of reaching the top splits or earning the maximum amount of points. That's how it works basically. The better the drivers in the lobby, the more points are at stake. So as this is a split one race at Tokyo, there's a lot on the line. I think the maximum point score in this race is 2,700 points, which is an extremely good haul, and we've got our sights firmly set on that as we approach the halfway mark of the race. Fuel saving in the Alfa, pretty difficult, as you can imagine, because we're already down on power. There's not really a great deal I can do to fuel save down that main straight, so I've been trying to incorporate the fuel saving into the middle sector, changing up nice and early here behind Matt as we go for a move on the brakes, and we're going to get that one done. Nice move there, Matt giving me plenty of room. With a little mistake on the exit, we very, very nearly dropped the car there. That's going to cost us a lot of time. I've already stated it on many occasions in this video, and we're not even 10 minutes into the commentary that we're already down on power here. So that mistake is essentially, unfortunately, going to cut us adrift of this main group. So hopefully we can get our head down. On the flip side, it means that the second and third sectors of the track are going to be completely clear for us, so we can run to our maximum pace. Tyres are going off a little bit, but to be honest with you, tyre wear in this race wasn't a massive factor, so you know, we've still got plenty of life in those to put down a decent sector time. So whilst we've lost the toe on this main straight, we're all alone. Look, car maxing out at a measly 159 miles an hour before we brake hard down into turn 1. Very difficult corner, turn 1. You're rising over a crest, the track kind of narrows and falls away from you, and then turn 2 is the complete opposite. So asking a lot of the car, those first 2 corners. Very difficult to get them both right, I find. Interesting first sector to the circuit. Chicane again, as we're coming up to that, very difficult. It's even more difficult at night. You're unsighted, you can't really see the apex. You've just got to kind of remember your braking point and just pray that the track hasn't moved. And then we head through the sweep bridge. You can see the Alpha has, you know, gained quite a significant, I would say, chunk of time through that middle sector. It's where it's really strong. We've not been able to stretch our legs in this middle sector during this race anywhere near as much as we would have wanted to. But you can see visually the gap has come down dramatically as we head to the end of the 5th lap. Now I was kind of faced with a bit of a dilemma at this point. I'd fuel saved enough where I could probably have made it another lap, but at this point I just kind of thought to myself, I don't want to risk it. I'd rather pit now, have a successful pit, come out behind Steph, who's just in front of me, get into his toe, you know, and try and make up time on the guys ahead, because as you'll see in a second, a lot of the guys that are ahead do not pit yet. Pumku behind me takes that one step further, but you'll see that. So we're going to dive into the pits, and unfortunately we make a second mistake of the race here. So you see the car is stationary. I do not take tyres, there's no need, but I completely forget to press the button to not take tyres, so I sit stationary in the pits for about 3 seconds before my car starts to refuel. So lose out massively in the pits, but I still come out just behind Matty, probably a 2-second gap to Matty ahead, who was for a long period leading the race at the start. So I think we made up time during the pit period with our fuel saving, but unfortunately with the little error, I was that keen to not take tyres and get the pit stop right that I ended up getting it wrong, which is frustrating, but it kind of shows my inexperience in these FIA races and in these FIA settings. I've not done nearly enough of these. As you can see from the channel, pretty much every FIA Nations or Manufacturers Cup race that I've done, I've uploaded. So it's no stretch of the imagination to say that I'm very inexperienced when it comes to this kind of stuff. The races in the FIA are a huge step up from daily races. This kind of competition will not let you off the hook for mistakes. There's always going to be someone that's on form and on fire to take that kind of victory away from you. So as you can see, first and second at the moment, Matt and Calster with Rickard in third. We were running basically with them before our mistake in the pits. We were very close to them at least before our mistake in the pits, and also coming out of the final corner. So we'll see where they come out. It'll kind of give us a good indicator of where we potentially would have been had it not been for our pit stop mishap. But we've caught Matty up quite nicely through that middle sector once again. Lap 6 out of 10. This race was an absolute war of attrition at this point. I had a bit of a sweat on. It's very difficult to keep the car out of the walls and also run to such a brutal pace as this. It has been a very brutal race, especially with the fact that we've spent a lot of it on the back foot, a lot of it defending our position rather than being on the offensive as we close right up to the back of Matty. But it's been a fun race all the same, definitely without a doubt the most fun I've had in an FIA race so far, and hopefully that's reflecting itself in the actual video. It's been a decent race. We've been back and forth. We've been down as low as 10th, up as high as 4th. It's been a right yo-yo of a race. So we've come out in a net 10th position basically after the pit stop. Christian slow out of the pit, so we're going to use some of that lovely slipstream and just ghost by his Lexus, which is extremely quick in a straight line. Kind of the opposite of the Alpha in terms of the way it attacks the circuit. Very fast in a straight line, not the best through the middle sector. I think we've kind of gone for complete opposite approaches, whereas you've got cars like the Ferrari with Matt, or the Citroen. They're kind of jack of all trades at this track. They're good in pretty much all aspects of the circuit. The Ferrari in particular handles really well, it's quite a decent top speed. The Citroen, again, a nice handling vehicle, very good on fuel. As you can see, Pumpunku, who was behind us before that first pit stop, is now leading the race. That's how good he was able to be on fuel. He just basically sat back, bided his time, held the fuel. That makes no sense. Saved fuel, and it's absolutely he's reaping his rewards now. What I noticed during the race as well is Tokyo is usually quite strict on its enforcement of track limits in terms of wall bounces and things like that. A lot of drivers seem to get away quite a lot with tapping walls. I mean, we've seen, not to pick on him, but we've seen Steph in front of us, he's just hit the wall 4 times in a space of 5 or 6 corners and has not got a penalty. But then other members of the race, as he tries to switch back on us there, hit the wall once and we're given a 5-second penalty. So I think a lot has been said about the penalty system in GT Sport at the moment and the current state of it, so I don't really need to elaborate on that too much, but it's inconsistencies like that that really matter at such a high level. You know, it gets to a stage where essentially you're devaluing the race in general by the penalty system being more of a lottery than you know, something that's fair and just. You don't want to have situations where people basically look their way into a better result because they've had a more lenient you know, ride of the penalty system. As we jump up the inside of Steph, kind of neglected the on-track action now. We had a good battle, myself and Steph, over the last couple of corners. We overtook him into the final corner, and then through turn 1 and 2, a big battle between us both, gave each other racing room, good battle, didn't touch either, no negative SR for either of us. Fantastic racing from the Frenchman, lots of respect, gave each other just about enough room, and as you can see, I've said it a couple of times in the race, the Alpha's so fast through this middle sector. We've just left the 2 guys who were behind us, completely behind, so we close in on the Citroen of Ricard in front of us. Matty already jumped him. He's a little bit up the road in his, I believe it was an Aston that Matty was using in this race. So basically we've kind of settled back into this 8th position. Once we'd lost those initial positions at the start of the race, it was very, very difficult to try and get them back. We've got Pumpunku winning the race, Jamaican racer in 2nd, Matt in his Ferrari in 3rd, doing extremely well, maximising his strategy so far for sure. But we're completely out of slipstream range at this point. This spells trouble. So we've made a lot of time on the Italian Christian and Steph in the last sector. You can see from the mirror behind me they're not close. From what I can remember in the race, the gap at the start of the straight was about 1.5 seconds, but just watch what happens. Those lights getting ever larger in my rearview mirror until they basically just both breeze past me. There's just no defence in that situation. There's nothing I can do. My braking performance isn't drastically better, so I have to rely on a mistake from both of them in the first corner to allow me basically to fight back. It's very difficult, as I say, in this car itself to defend from that move. There was basically nothing I could do in that situation. If those 2 hadn't made a mistake around the first corner, there was no coming back for me. I couldn't brake any later than I did. I hit the apex. The tyres were struggling a little bit more during this point. We didn't take tyres at the pit stop to try and save time. I think pretty much everyone in the race went for that strategy. So we're nice and close behind Christian, and usually in this situation we'd be a dramatic amount faster than him through this sector. You see he's having to lift through that right sweeper, he's having to lift through this left sweeper, so are we. We've had to avoid hitting the back of him. No point on lap 9 of the race having fought so hard to maintain a top 10 position to just throw it away by hitting the back of him through there, getting impatient. So we're going to bide our time and stalk him down into this last corner, up into 6th gear. He went defensive a little bit. We're going to show him a little bit of the car on the inside, but he chops across in front of us No, thank you, Mr. Rosso. You're not having that one. Ricard's made a mistake, so we're up into 8th. So basically back where we have resided for the majority of this race. It seems like we are destined for an 8th position finish, but 1 lap left to go. And again, we're losing time on this straight. We were right the way behind Christian at the start of the straight, but that means nothing in this Alpha. Steph coming across, trying desperately to get himself a little bit of that toe. Christian moves across in front of him. I was thinking at this point, damn it, he couldn't have just stayed in front of me. We're basically just fighting desperately over this slipstream, knowing, the pair of us, that whoever gets it basically is going to come out ahead in this race. And Steph grabs that slipstream. There's nothing I can do. Again, no recourse for me into the first corner. I'm going to try very hard to get on the power early out of turn 1 and set myself up for a move in turn 2. Steph up the inside of Christian, and again we're just going to have to come out of the power. There was nothing I could do at that point. There was nowhere for me to go, and again, there's absolutely no point in me picking up a penalty at that point. It's the last lap of the race. There was nowhere for me to go, no move on. Very frustrating again, because as I said at the start of the race, the Alpha's strengths, there's just nowhere to utilise them on this track. It was a very, very difficult race for the little 4C. But I remember when I picked it, one of my friends basically said, you're going to find it very difficult at Tokyo, but you're going to look good doing it. And we did. The 4C, an absolutely beautiful looking vehicle. So we definitely won the 2,700 style points as we come into the final sector for the final time. We're right behind Steph, trying to maximise our points haul for this race. Just having a look down the inside to see where Christian was ahead, see if a move was possible into this final corner. Steph looking at Christian, I'm looking at Steph. Going to try a switch back, but at this point I was kind of defeated. I knew that I would never be able to outdrag these cars down the straight. What the replay doesn't show you, however, is that 7th place Christian is carrying a penalty. So we may well jump up into 8th, depending on how this finishes. Matt, unfortunately carrying a penalty, drops out of the podium positions. Christian slows down to serve his penalty. We're in Steph's draft. And 7th position, so Calster also carrying a slight penalty at the end of that race. So basically we went on to the last straight in 9th and managed to come away with the 7th position. Those couple of incidents where I could have easily ran into the back of one of the cars ahead of me, proving very crucial in the final stages of the race, allowing us to come away with 7th position rather than serving a little time penalty. So hopefully you enjoyed that one, guys. Expect to see more of the Alpha over the next couple of days, and I'll see you all soon.